In the modern world of transportation, we are accustomed to smooth, silent bullet trains, high-speed electric rails, and automated subways controlled by microchips. These machines are efficient, clean, and highly predictable. But there was an era when moving civilization required something entirely different. It required a raw, screaming symphony of heavy steel, boiling water, and burning coal. It required a machine that felt less like an appliance and more like a living, breathing mechanical monster. And among all the steel monsters ever forged by human hands, one absolute titan rules supreme. Enter the Union Pacific Big Boy. Built in the early 1940s by the American Locomotive Company, the Big Boy is officially the largest, heaviest, and most powerful successful steam locomotive ever constructed in human history. To see it in person is an experience that defies logic. It stretches to an unbelievable length of 132 feet, making it longer than a commercial Boeing 737 airliner. It weighs a crushing 600 tons, a mass so immense that it requires a specialized, articulated wheel framework just to navigate the curved tracks of the American wilderness. For decades, these mechanical behemoths were thought to be extinct, left to rust in museums as cold monuments to a bygone industrial age. But recently, a team of obsessive engineers undertook one of the most audacious mechanical restoration projects in history, bringing Union Pacific number 4014 back to life. Today, it is the only operating big boy on Earth. When this 600-ton mountain of iron fires up its boilers and hits the open rails, it doesn't just move, it makes the very earth beneath your feet tremble. But what is the secret behind the physics of this steam-powered titan? And how did engineers during World War II build a machine that pushed the absolute boundaries of classical thermodynamics? To understand why the Big Boy was created, we must travel back to a time of global crisis. World War II. In the early 1940s, the United States faced an unprecedented logistical nightmare. The country needed to transport millions of tons of military hardware, tanks, artillery, and troops across the vast American continent to the Pacific Theater. The most critical bottleneck in this entire supply chain was a brutal, unforgiving stretch of track known as the Wasatch Mountains in Utah. This mountain pass featured steep, punishing grades that rose continuously for miles. Standard locomotives of the era simply could not handle the terrain. To pull a heavy freight train up these mountains, railroad companies had to use multiple locomotives hooked together, which required massive amounts of extra crew, uncoordinated braking systems, and dangerous operations that slowed down the entire war effort. Union Pacific needed a single locomotive that could do the work of three. They needed a machine that could couple onto a massive, 5-mile-long freight train weighing over 4,000 tons and haul it up a steep mountain incline at a continuous speed of 60 miles per hour without any assistance. The physics required to achieve this was thought to be impossible for a steam engine. To generate that much continuous tractive effort, the engine would need a boiler so massive that it wouldn't be able to turn around tight mountain bends. The track rails themselves would snap under the concentrated weight. To solve this existential crisis, American engineers had to throw out the rulebook and reinvent the architecture of the railroad. The breakthrough that allowed the Big Boy to conquer the mountains was a brilliant engineering concept known as articulation. If engineers had built the Big Boy with a single, rigid steel frame, the 132-foot-long train would instantly derail the first time it encountered a curved track. It would be like trying to drive a limousine through a tight supermarket aisle. To bypass this geometric limitation, the Big Boy was designed with two separate chassis systems under one single boiler. The front set of 8 massive driving wheels is completely detached from the main body of the locomotive, pivoting on a giant hydraulic hinge mechanism. The rear set of 8 driving wheels remains rigidly attached to the frame. In engineering terms, this is known as a 4-8-8-4 wheel configuration. It means the train features 4 small guiding wheels in the front, followed by 2 separate sets of 8 massive driving wheels and 4 trailing wheels under the cab to support the weight of the massive firebox. When the big boy enters a tight mountain curve, the front half of the engine literally swings out independently, bending into the turn like a giant mechanical snake, while the massive boiler remains aligned over the tracks. This articulation allowed the weight of the 600-ton monster to be distributed evenly across 24 separate wheels. By spreading the load, the pressure exerted on individual sections of the steel rails was kept low enough to prevent the tracks from buckling, while maximizing the total surface area of iron gripping iron. This layout provided the ultimate balance of flexibility and raw, earth-shaking traction. At its core, a steam locomotive is a mobile thermodynamic energy converter. It turns the thermal energy of fire into the mechanical energy of moving pistons to generate the required 6,300 horsepower necessary to pull thousands of tons of war cargo. The big boy had to burn fuel at a rate that resembled an active volcano. The heart of this thermal system is the firebox, which features a grate area of 150 square feet. It was so massive that no human being could ever shovel coal fast enough to keep it burning at maximum capacity. To feed this beast, engineers installed a mechanical stoker, a massive internal Archimedes screw driven by a separate steam engine that pulled coal directly from the tender car and blasted it into the firebox using high-pressure steam jets. At peak operation, the big boy consumed a staggering 22 tons of coal every single hour. To turn that massive heat into motion, the boiler had to vaporize water at an alarming rate, consuming around 12,000 gallons of water per hour. The pressure inside the giant boiler reached a terrifying 300 pounds per square inch. When the driver opened the throttle, this superheated steam was shot down into 4 massive cylinders. Each piston stroke delivered over 135,000 pounds of tractive force directly to the 68-inch driving wheels. The kinetic energy generated by this process was so violent that if the wheels began to slip on an icy or wet rail, the friction would generate enough instant heat to literally melt and weld the steel wheels directly to the tracks. To prevent this, the big boy used a pressurized air system that blasted crushed volcanic sand directly in front of the wheels to maintain a death grip on the rails. Operating the big boy was an exhausting, high-stakes game of sensory awareness and split-second calculations. Inside the cab, the environment was a deafening cauldron of intense heat, screaming steam, and vibrating steel. The engineer and fireman did not have digital dashboards, computer sensors, or automated safety overrides. They relied entirely on mechanical pressure gauges, the smell of hot oil, and the deep, distinct sound of the exhaust rhythm. Because of the massive length of the boiler stretching out in front of the cab, the driver's visibility of the tracks ahead was severely limited. When navigating tight mountain passes or entering dark, smoky tunnels, the crew was essentially driving blind, relying on clear communication, railway signal towers, and absolute faith in their machine. The braking system alone was a masterpiece of pneumatic physics. Stopping a 600-ton locomotive coupled to a 4,000-ton freight train moving at 60 miles per hour downhill requires an immense amount of negative energy. The big boy utilized an advanced Westinghouse air brake matrix that sent compressed air down the entire length of the train, engaging heavy cast-iron brake shoes on hundreds of wheels simultaneously. If the engineer applied the brakes too quickly, the extreme kinetic momentum would cause the heavy freight cars behind to jackknife and crush each other. If he applied them too slowly, the entire train would run away down the mountain out of control. It was a delicate, dangerous dance that required years of hard-earned experience to master. By the late 1950s, the industrial world was changing. The advent of highly efficient, low-maintenance diesel-electric locomotives meant that the glorious, chaotic era of steam was coming to an end. Diesel engines didn't require thousands of gallons of water every few miles. and they didn't leave trails of thick black soot across the countryside. One by one, the proud big boys were retired from service, silenced forever after serving their country through its darkest hours. But as Union Pacific No. 4014 proved during its miraculous modern restoration, you cannot truly kill a legend. When this 600-ton mechanical god rolls out onto the modern American rail system today, it serves as a powerful, living testament to what human engineering could achieve with nothing more than raw steel, water, fire, and mathematical genius. It is a machine that doesn't just move cargo, it moves the human spirit. It is the ultimate manifestation of the Iron Symphony, a proud reminder of an era when engineering wasn't hidden behind glass screens, but was forged in fire, shouting its power for the whole world to hear. Thank you for watching this deep dive on Iron Symphony. If you want to see more hidden engineering monsters and mechanical physics explained, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and leave a comment below on what machine we should tear down next.